Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Dr. Pleener, Andrew, what do you
Yes,
prefer?
yes. Either is fine. Whatever you prefer.
All right. So we are, before I forget it, at your earliest convenience, if you could send me a picture that they can use as a headshot for publicity and the bio that you would like to have me read to introduce this.
Okay, is that something that you had requested from me before? Did I drop the ball on that?
Nope, I don't believe so. It's usually, sometimes people even just let me or want me to take it from their website, but um,
Yeah, you certainly can. So if we go to samehereglobal.org and we go on the psych directory, and then you click on my profile at the top, you could use that as the headshot. You could use the outside or the inside pic. And then you could just read, Dr. Andrew Pleener's bio. Yeah, that's fine. I guess the only updates is that I'm the founder and the director of the Same Here Psych and Star Alliances, but it's fine. You could literally just read this.
the one that's experts profile, Andrew Pleener.
Yeah, and then at
Yeah.
the very top, it just says Dr. Andrew Pleener's bio.
Yep. So we'll just use that and that picture. And if there's a problem, if the pro web podcast people say, hey, we need a different picture or a higher resolution, I don't think they will. But if they do, then
Yeah, I'll be able to get you like
one
original like screenshots and things like that. Yeah.
Well, this will let me save your the picture that's there by your bio, so that should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you this morning?
Yeah, everything's going well. It's a beautiful day out in Central Florida. Where are you based out of?
About an hour and a half northwest of Chicago, halfway
Nice.
between Chicago and Rockford, Illinois.
Nice. No, it's great. It's probably a beautiful time right now over there. The weather's probably like in the midst between being warm and kind of like just right.
Yeah, and I'm one who likes the warmer weather in the summer, so we're heading into the more favorite time of the year for me for the outdoor activities.
So sort of take me through the process.
Well, I like to just I like to just let people do, and I think we talked about this in our phone call, that I want you to be thinking of this as a way to do an infomercial for Same Here.
Mm-hmm.
And just a brief reminder that basically Same Here is very similar to Journey's Dream, except Same Here probably has been around longer and has more money for their website. But the idea is the 4 founders of Journey's Dream are 3 family members of a young man who lost his life to suicide due to mental health issues back in 2013, and a gentleman who's come through his own struggles with bipolar disorder and multiple hospitalizations, and found holistic functional medicine, integrative approaches so that he's no longer on the medications and no longer in hospitalizations. And
Wow.
And one of the things that has come through the work building Journey's Dream as a not-for-profit is the idea that Journey's Dream wants to help rewrite the narrative on mental health from whatever it is to one in which optimal health and well-being are possible and expected.
Mm-hmm.
And so they want
very
to be
much aligned with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically the same message. And the more we do this work, this podcast started a year ago, February, and we've been interviewing people 1 a week. We've done, I think, 56 or 57 interviews now, and integrative psychiatrists and yoga teachers that specialize in trauma reduction, and naturopathic physicians that help people with everything from the kind of thing that they struggle with, obsessive compulsive disorder, to psychosis, etc. Residential treatment facilities that help people get better with as little meds or no meds as they want. And so that's, the idea is that this podcast will serve as a vehicle to drive awareness and traffic to your website, whoever we interview, and to Journey's Dream website to expand their reach and their capacity.
Yeah, I would actually love to connect the founders with Eric, our founder. I mean, I think we're such a like.
It's a done deal. You say the word and we'll make it happen. And
I mean, it just sounds really great. Look, we're not the type of organization, and we could even talk about this on the podcast, but we're certainly not the type of organization that believes in that we are going to conquer the whole world on our own. We understand that this space, the way it is already extremely large and can never be taken on its own, which is why there's a need for alliances. And if we're really doing this wellness approach where it's mental health for all, we're even above the 1 in 5 market. We're really talking about a 5 in 5 mission here. And it really takes collaborating with people that actually believe that.
And it's wonderful. I was reading the Same Here Hero of the Day, Josh Lewin, and he talks about he's got his own website for this. So, you can't have too many people out there giving people a venue to connect and talk in a safe environment about these critical issues.
I love it. Yeah, no, it's amazing.
So all we need to do
looking
is
forward to diving in.
Oh, okay. All we need to do is clear my throat and get a simple water. If we have a coughing fit or something, we just take a few seconds break and then pick it up, and they can edit that out. And I will start you off with the question. So, thanks for being here. And can you let us know a little bit about how you got into the work you're doing and what drives your passion for it? That's usually the question I start with.
Yeah.
So if you're ready, we'll act like we just said hello.
like introductions, right?
And put our play hat on. And so, Dr. Pleener, thank you for being here. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me here, Timothy. Really, really appreciate it.
Well, the Journey's Dream seems very aligned with Same Here, and I'd love to hear how you got into the work you're doing and what drives your passion for it.
Yeah, sure, Tim. So a little bit of my background. I'm an integrative psychiatrist. I have a practice out in Central Florida, and my real motivation to get into the space really came about from childhood experiences. My father is a functional family practitioner who had an emphasis on lifestyle medicine and weight loss and nutrition. And he used to always tell me at a young age, I used to shadow him frequently, people would come into his practice overweight, and they would be on cholesterol lowering medications, and then they would develop insulin resistance due to the weight, and maybe put on diabetic medications. They would develop sleep apnea, and then they would feel fatigue and eventually be diagnosed with depressive symptoms and, start being put on multiple psychotropics. They would come to his practice, and he used to always tell me, does anybody actually help, get the weight down and work on the lifestyle medicine so that they don't actually need all these medications in the first place? It always really resonated with me, watching him coach them to weight loss and put them on nutritional plans. And he was very big into the whole brain-gut connection back in the 80s, when this was something that nobody was ever really thinking about. And he would start to take people off the medications, or at least lower the dose. And I used to watch the mood symptoms start to really change. And it really made me aware, even at a young age, that there's a big connection between lifestyle and the way we think, feel, and function. And then when I was a little bit older, we took a trip to Africa, and we went to Kenya and Tanzania, and it was an amazing trip. But on the way home from that, my mother ended up getting sick, and it just wasn't getting better. She was having indigestion, upset stomach, and we ended up taking her to a doctor, and she was diagnosed with a parasitic infection, and was put on antiprotozoans and started to, what we thought, get better. And then for the next 2.5 years, she lost tremendous amounts of weight. Didn't matter how much she ate, she just kept losing weight. She was fatigued, malaise, couldn't get up out of bed, brain fog. I watched her deteriorate, and she got every single test in the book medically, and every single test was coming back normal. And she was diagnosed with mental health issues and started seeing practitioners and was prescribed medications, and nothing really seemed to be getting better. And I was really watching her just struggle to do anything. And eventually we got in touch with the African consulate, and they put us in touch with a Dr. Kevin Cahill, who used to oversee the United Nations Tropical Disease Program. And he ended up seeing her, and actually that same day diagnosed her with another parasite that went undiscovered all those years. And she ends up being treated for that. And I slowly watched all of her symptoms get better and resolve. There's just this amazing connection between how physical symptoms can really cause mental health issues, and how stress and trauma can certainly cause medical issues. And as I ended up going into medical school, I made up my mind that I wanted to be a psychiatrist, but I wanted the focus to be on mind-body connection. And I think watching all those struggles that, I had gone through, watching my mother get sick, and just the weight of all of that. And my parents ended up separating as I was going into college, and just the weight of all of that, I started to experience physical health issues myself: light sensitivity, fatigue, brain fog, just loss of interest. My grades were, on par, and, I was getting all A's and got into medical school and still did extremely well. But, because I didn't really meet this criteria for disorder, because I was high functioning, but I was having all these physical health symptoms. When all these tests came back negative, I just assumed that it wasn't mental health related. But as I started studying the mind-body aspect and learning the impacts that stress and trauma has on psychological processes, and how that leads to hormonal imbalances and inflammation and changes to the neural circuits, and how that impacts the way we think, feel, and function, I started to realize that it's stress related. And I started going on a mission of wellness and lifestyle and diet and exercise, and getting into modalities, whether different styles of breathing and mindfulness. And it just kind of started me on my whole journey towards an integrative path. Took certification courses through the Leslie Korn Institute, and really started to recover. And I think that it's almost a common story that you hear amongst integrative providers. Everybody has their own story, and so that hopefully that gives a little bit of my background as to why I got involved with this space.
Well, it's exactly the kind of story that we're used to hearing from integrative providers. Not all of them have, their own illness, but Dr. Mark Hyman tells a similar story where he had, all kinds of physical problems that the the current medical model couldn't provide any solution for. And that's what drove him to get into the functional and integrative medicine area. So it's wonderful to hear that you were able to turn it around, and that the situation for your mother was able to turn around. And now you're practicing as a functional medicine psychiatrist. Can you let me know, in your definition, let our listeners know, how you would give meaning to that? How do you talk about that in a direct way with patients as the difference between you and somebody who doesn't call themselves a functional psychiatrist or integrative psychiatrist?
Yeah, so I refer to myself as an integrative psychiatrist, and definitely I utilize a lot of the principles of functional medicine as well. But the main difference is that, if we're speaking from the conventional model has been very heavily based off of diagnosing, based off of the DSM criteria. And if you have 5 out of 9 of these symptoms, you have this diagnosis, if you have 4 out of 9 of these symptoms, you do not. You're perfectly fine, healthy. There's nothing going on, right? And medication management has been one of the primary, sources for treatment. Well, the integrative model really looks at the whole person. It looks at how medical conditions actually impact mental health and how stress and trauma actually can impact the body, causing medical issues, and really learning mind-body connection about how challenges that we go through in life, on top of genetics and lifestyle, how does that really impact psychological processes, affecting things like ruminating thoughts and cognitive fusion and lack of psychological flexibility? And what does that actually do to the body? What does that actually do hormonally to the body? What does our body start releasing when that happens? And what happens when we start shifting the balance between a normal balance of fight or flight and rest and digest response towards fight or flight response? And when the nerves in the body that want to slow everything down start to become neglected and shrunk, there leads to consequences. And that starts to impact our digestive rhythms and our circadian rhythms, our ultradian rhythms, and can absorb, the proper nutrients anymore. We can't make the proper neurotransmitters anymore. And they could explain all these different concepts to the clients. And when you start looking at it that way, you realize that mental health is not a binary topic of sick versus healthy. It's not this straight line where if you either have disorder or you're perfectly fine. It's a continuum. And maybe this stress and trauma starts to change your nervous system in your body to the point of getting disorder, or maybe it's manifesting in low reaction time, poor decision making, fatigue, missing free throw shots. And then what are all the different ways that we can help push these processes back towards pre-trauma states using various non-medication modalities in combination with conventional modalities? It's just about knowing that there's other ways to really get to the source. So whether we're talking about diet and lifestyle or micronutrients or alternative ways outside of meds to regulate sleep. It could be as simple as recommending blue light blocking glasses to help increase melatonin at nighttime because we're on all these screens all the time, and how we can start utilizing B complex vitamins in the morning, or B12 in the morning, and what are many different botanicals that we can use as alternatives to medications that are a little bit more natural. And so to me, it's really looking at how the underlying medical conditions are affecting our body and how we can actually start to treat that to actually improve our mood, learning how nutrition actually affects our body, and really learning how stress and trauma actually impacts the nervous system, and really working on all 3 of those buckets and utilizing conventional tools and tools beyond pharmacology.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And so at somewhere along the line, you're decided to be the founder and director of Same Here Psych Alliance. Can you tell us about that entity and what you're hoping to do with that?
Yeah, so I'll give you the backstory on Same Here. I mean, the mission of Same Here is to change the way mental health is perceived and practiced on a global scale. We're a collective entity of celebrities and influencers and everyday people and CEOs and practitioners and star experts, advocates, all really holding hands saying that mental health is not a topic just for the 1 in 5 that are labeled with mental illness. It's a topic for 5 in 5. This is something that we all go through because we all face challenges in life, whether it's divorce, breakups, job losses, or what everybody's going through right now with COVID-19. And, these experiences impact us on this continuum, maybe to the point of disorder or maybe to the point of lack of wellness. But it's certainly just like physical health. We all have mental health, and we should be proactive about it. And we're all holding hands with all these different advocates championing Same Here, which is the American Sign Language sign with thumb to the chest, pinky pointing out. It means I've been through a challenge that's impacted my body. You've been through a challenge that impacts yours. To relate to each other, the way a soldier who is in war, the way his neural circuits are impacted, it's not so different from the way my neural circuits were impacted watching my mother deteriorate and when I went through my own struggles when my parents separated. Not so different from somebody that loses a child from SIDS or a boxer that's 11-0 and gets knocked out for the first time and is now having ruminating thoughts every time he steps into the ring. Maybe it manifests differently, but the circuitry involved is rather the same. We're part of the same tribe. We didn't know it, hence this concept of same here. And it's a movement that's spreading across the U.S. and now global, really showing that this is a topic for everybody, and that's what really breaks down stigma. The origins is it all was derived from a personal lived experience. Eric Hewson is the founder of the Same Here global mental health movement. He's a sports exec. He had worked in the sports industry for many years with the New Jersey Devils and the Phoenix Suns, and eventually he landed his dream job with the Florida Panthers, an NHL hockey team out in South Florida, and he was really brought in to become the CEO of this company. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, he was just stopped in his tracks with debilitating physical issues, which we now know as mental health, but just to show he had no idea. He never had any past history, quote unquote, of mental health history. He had never seen a psychiatrist or therapist. He had no idea what this topic was. And all of a sudden, he was having brain fog and malaise and couldn't put together sentences, couldn't have a single original thought, as he actually states it. Couldn't remember the middle names of his siblings, and he had no idea. His automatic thought was that he was having a brain tumor, and he ended up taking a step down just to get some medical workups, thinking that they would find something. Everything came back negative, and then he ends up referred to a conventional practitioner. He ends up leaving that first appointment with 5 different psychotropics, but, I guess sort of thinking what we see in, commercials, you're sick, you take an antibiotic, you get better. Antidepressant sounds quite similar. He thought that this was the normal way to do it and that he would get better. And just 2.5 years ends up going by and he's put on over 50 different psychotropics, thinking that he's doing everything that there is to really work on this, laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, going through all these side effects of these medications, seeing doctors, doing a 4-week washout, trying new combinations. Just 2.5 years goes by. He has to permanently leave his position. Eventually, he's told that he has treatment-resistant mental illness. He ends up getting TMS therapy, and then eventually ends up going to a hospital and is told by the head of the hospital that he's literally has tried every single thing that there is. His last resort is shock therapy, and this is a big part of our movement because he was terrified to hear last resort. It wasn't shock therapy. It was this idea that when shock therapy didn't work out for him, he believed that his life was over. There was no hope. And when you tell somebody this is your last resort, you take away hope. When you tell people that there's all these different modalities out there that can get to the source, give hope. And part of our movement is to make sure nobody ever has to hear those words ever again. He ends up leaving Florida. He's living with his parents out in New York. And parents are in the school industries. Father's a principal, mother's a teacher. They end up getting connected to an integrative psychotherapist and, just blown away by the work that she does. Says, Eric, you have to try this. And he was skeptical, ends up giving it a shot. And she's the first one that really explains this concept of breathing and how when we're stressed for such a long period of time, there's this nerve that starts to lose tone, and we could actually stimulate this nerve by doing these rhythmic breathing exercises. And we could start communicating with our brain through these rhythms to tell our brain that everything is safe, and how we could actually improve digestion and lower heart rates and reduce inflammation. And she was the first person to explain this. She's also the first one that started the conversation with, Eric, tell me about your life, instead of what are your symptoms. He ends up to explain this concept about how his brother, his whole entire life, was in and out of hospitals with cancer. His older brother had leukemia, ended up going into a coma, came out of the coma, went into septic shock. Father had to donate a kidney. Cancer kept coming back. He was deteriorating. Several of his friends later on in life ended up dying of heart diseases. And the thing is, he had zero idea that this was ever a topic that was impacting him, because he thought that stress and trauma is something only for military soldiers. It was his brother that was going through everything. He had no idea that every single time he was driving home that he was having automatic thoughts of, what if the cancer is stage 4, that was actually doing something physical to his body. He had no idea that every time he would see an ambulance drive by, having automatic thoughts of, is that going to my house? Instead of, is that going to somebody else's place? He had no idea that this was starting to build up in him. And over time, he ended up having this breakdown. So this is the first person that really opened up the door to him, that even watching somebody else go through a challenge could actually impact you physically. And there's actually modalities that we can do outside of medications that actually help strengthen certain circuits in the body that are impacted from this. And this is the reason why you feel the way that you do, because of all these accumulated experiences. So he ends up taking the Art of Living course founded by Ravi Shankar. He ends up doing it for 3 days, learns about the Sudaharshan Kriya and multiple other breathing modalities. And he ends up sticking with this for about 30 days. The course is 3 days, but he sticks with it for about another 30 or maybe 40 days. He starts to notice a difference. And he ends up from there getting connected to an integrative pioneer, Dr. Richard Brown, out in New York, faculty for Columbia. And he goes on to really explain the education of mind-body connection, about how the stress and trauma disrupts all these neural circuits, leading to hormonal imbalances, inflammatory changes. He goes into polyvagal theory, explains him about brain-gut connection, and educates him on all these different supplements outside of prescriptions. And he ends up managing his meds. He's still taking medication till this day, but now on a much...
There you are. There you
Hi,
are.
Timothy. Yeah, I'm sorry, and I'm not sure what just happened. Just got disconnected.
All right. So I was just trying to look up your number through my cell and call you, and I realized the last time I did that, it was not the right number. So anyway, you were talking about how the founder of Same Here got hooked up with this pioneer in integrative medicine.
Yep. Okay.
After he'd done that, he took the 3-day living breathing course and extended it for 30 or 40 days, and then eventually. So who did he get hooked up with after that?
Yep. So he ended up getting connected with Dr. Richard Brown, pioneer in the space. He's faculty over in Columbia's program, author of The Healing Power of the Breath. Definitely a must read. And he went in to really explain the depths of mind-body connection, how it really physically changes the body, and then educated him on multiple ways to heal outside of prescription medication, various supplements and dietary and lifestyle changes. He was able to lower his psychotropic medication and put him on, various supplements, and then taught him ways to heal outside of breathing, taught him the concepts of Qigong meditation, different various styles of yoga. He learned about tension and trauma releasing exercises and EFT and various non-medication healing modalities, otherwise called complementary alternative. We call them STAR exercises. And he ends up going on this retreat to Indonesia, goes into more depth about all of this, and really starts to feel better. When he comes back, he connects the dots on 3 concepts. One concept is, for 2.5 years, every single person was telling him all about medications, and when that doesn't work, you have TMS and shock therapy as your last resort, only to then find out that there's a million other options out there that nobody had ever explained to him before. The second concept, as we mentioned earlier, is that even watching somebody else go through a challenge can actually impact your mental health directly. And who on this planet isn't impacted in some way when we think about watching others go through breakups and job losses and divorces and like we said, what we're all going through here with Corona. If going through a challenge directly or watching somebody else go through a challenge can impact you on a physical level, then why do we see on nonprofits all around the world that 1 out of 5 are at risk of mental health issues? Why isn't it a 5 and 5 topic? And why aren't we learning about all these non-medicative ways to heal that are safer and much more effective? And why aren't we doing this at a young age for resiliency purposes? We certainly do that with physical health. We don't wait for plaque to just build up in our bodies before we start exercising and eating right and eating organic. Why aren't we doing that with our central nervous system? So he shares the story on LinkedIn about 3 years ago now, and it gets read over 150,000 times within 3 days. It gets over 500 missed calls from as far as New York to China, and the commonality on all these calls is nobody was talking about disorder. Everybody was talking about a lived experience that they had been through. And, you know, whether it was watching somebody go through an illness to having a breakup and getting remarried, but still not truly feeling like they're over their ex, regardless of what their physical symptoms were currently, they were all talking about the root underlying causes, the challenges in their life. Maybe it manifested later on, you know, to the point of disorder or anywhere on that continuum. So we decided to form this organization, Eric did, to get away from just focusing on disorder and more on the root underlying causes, the challenges. I was able to get various people in the sports industry because that was the background. Major League Baseball players, NFL, NBA players, musicians and DJs and actors and actresses to all share a vulnerable story of a challenge that they've been through or watched somebody else go through. We call it the Same Here stories. And collectively, they're referred to as the Same Here Celebrity Alliance. People started to tune into our website to read these stories of celebrities, and our audience began to climb over social media. Eventually, we let everyday people share stories. They're called Same Here Heroes. And they started to reach out and say, look, we understand, we're starting to get this, that maybe this is a topic for everybody, 5 and 5. We all go through these challenges, but how do we learn ways to build resilience so that this, you know, just like plaque doesn't build up in the arteries, so the stress and trauma doesn't build all the way up in the central nervous system, or at least we can use these ways to complement the medication ways. And that's when I really ended up getting connected with Eric. I was practicing integrative psychiatry out in Florida, and then doing work with somebody that was connected to the organization, a mutual friend, I guess you can call it, ends up connecting Eric and I. Eric and I end up having a 2.5-hour conversation. We end up realizing that we're both from the same town in New York. Actually went to the same high school, just about 6 years apart, never knew each other in the high school, but it was just very serendipitous feel. And we wanted to bring awareness. We had this idea, let's bring awareness to these non-medications healing modalities. People want this. Eric had no idea any of this existed. It's not taught in medical school. It's not taught in residency. 7 billion people on the planet. We seem to be getting an audience. How do we bring awareness that these modalities exist? But we wanted to get away from calling these modalities complementary or alternative, because some people will say, you know, I don't want to try something complementary or alternative or holistic. I want to go to where the science is, you know, where the medications are. And the word alternative also bothered us because these modalities have been around a lot longer than conventional, you know, modalities. So we ended up coming up with this acronym called STAR. STAR stands for stress and trauma, the things that build up in our nervous system, active release and rewiring exercises. Or we call it the gym for the brain. We all know all the different various exercises for your physical health. These are the exercises for the central nervous system. And we were able to get the leaders in the space of specific STAR modalities to come join and be part of our organization, whether Stephen Hayes, the inventor of ACT therapy, representing ACT therapy for our organization, or Amy Weintraub, representing yoga, or the founders of accelerated resolution therapy, or the founder of the Optimer method of neurofeedback, or the inventor of Alpha Stim CES, aromatherapy, and Qigong. And people can click on these profiles, read the bio of the STAR expert, but then learn the science behind why these modalities help. How does integrative breathing modalities help the nervous system? How does it actually impact the vagus nerve? What is the vagus nerve? How does that help improve digestion and reduce inflammation? What does havening do on the amygdala? What does Qigong do on meridian points? What is a meridian point? why should we start utilizing all of these things? And if you think about physical health, if you lived a sedentary lifestyle, Tim, for years, just like multiple muscles in the body would atrophy, you wouldn't just do a singular modality for the rest of your life, like go on a treadmill every single day. Because what about biceps and triceps and cardio? Multiple parts of your body needs to be worked on. And what about nutrition? It's the same thing. When we undergo these challenges for so many years, multiple architectural pathways are disrupted. Why should we learn about a singular modality? Why aren't we learning about many different modalities? And even if they're the same, I might prefer bench press, you might prefer push-ups, right? So let's just show all these modalities. People can build what's called a mental health toolbox. And then just, we kept reverse engineering these concepts where the next step was, how are people going to be connected to providers that understand these concepts? Because right now, as Dr. Richard Brown understood this to Eric, but you know, he had such a long wait list to get in. How are people going to be able to connect with providers around the world that could educate them on these things so that they don't have to wait 2.5 years staring at a ceiling like Eric did from day one? They can learn about mind-body connection, learn about total patient care, learn about ways to get to the source, whether they're at the point of disorder or they're just trying to maintain wellness and they're looking for a place to turn just to learn about mental health. We came up with the name, the Same Here Psych Alliance, to be inclusive of integrative psychologists, psychotherapists, psychiatric nurse practitioners, psychiatrists that all study mind-body connection. And, you know, several of the members in our alliance, you know very well, like Lila Masumi, that chairs the American Psychiatric Association's Integrative Caucus, Dr. Richard Brown, his wife Patricia, are founding members of this. Will DeVere, that runs the IPI Institute out in Colorado, the most comprehensive integrative training program globally. Nosheen Ranjabar, that directs the integrative training fellowship program out in Tucson, Arizona. Leslie Korn, world pioneer in integrative modalities and our continuing education courses. And then Nishi Bhopal, who you interviewed just not that long ago. And then through this, it just became this mission to form a global directory. So we've been putting together integrative providers all over the United States. And we're actually about to launch now the International Psych Alliance with leaders out in the Netherlands and Portugal and Norway and Guatemala and Canada and just various countries. And to be consistent with this 5 and 5, just like all the celebrities and the influencers and everyday heroes share a vulnerable story, all the members of the Psych Alliance also share a challenge that they've been through or have watched somebody else go through. So wherever anybody is in the world that's looking for total patient care, they can come right to this network that's being built and get straight to the source.
Wonderful. Wonderful at many levels. And the website, samehereglobal.org, that contains all of these things like the STAR Alliances and the STAR exercises and those experts, beautifully laid out, easy to navigate, and people can go there and even from the front page, you've got, especially on the mobile app, it loads up with, you know, the Same Here heroes and hero of today. And so I love the inclusive nature of it. Certainly I love the idea that you're pulling together these major resources for some of the traditional medicines and integrate it with, you know, the scientific validation. And this is just downright exciting. It's very, very exciting. How long have you been putting together the STAR Alliance?
So I got involved, like the organization as a concept was developed 3 years ago. That's when Eric shared his story, and it became just this movement based off of the vulnerability, the story that he shared, and how he just laid it all out. And it became about forming these networks of the celebrities and everyday heroes. And I got connected about 2 years ago. We started working on building out the STAR network. The STAR network is still evolving. It's still growing. We're still introducing. We just got an Ayurveda specialist that's going to be up on the website. We just featured Bonnie Kaplan representing micronutrients through the work that she does out in Calgary. And this is still a growing network as we continue to hold hands and get leaders in the space to come together. As far as the Psych Alliance goes, we launched it last May, the founding members, and we've been growing out the directory ever since. It's been all word of mouth. People are reaching out to get involved. And what's exciting is that we're laying out a pathway now where conventional practitioners can learn about the integrative techniques and be featured on the website. So a lot of conventional practitioners are calling saying, you know, would love to be involved. How do we get on the website? How do we learn about this? Would love what you guys are doing. And we now have, you know, resources where they can get training, whether it's through the IPI, whether it's through Dr. Leslie Korn's Institute, whether it's through Nosheen Ranjbar's fellowship program. And then they can get the training in these models, be featured as part of the network. From growing out these networks together, it's led to collaborations with numerous organizations all about culture change, 5 and 5 continuum model, integrative modalities to be used for resiliency purposes. We have a K through 12 program where we're partnered out with 30 school districts out in New York. Our programs and our curriculums are in many different countries overseas through our partner program, Beluga. These are all culture changing programs where, you know, we get celebrities and influencers to share vulnerable stories, work to build student-led mental health clubs, using our Scale app technologies to improve social and emotional communication between teachers and the students, not just for the 1 or 2 students that seem to be acting differently that get referred to a guidance counselor, but to make it part of health in general, asking everybody, where do you feel on this continuum scale? Are you thriving? Are you gliding? All the way to, are you struggling? And then being able to, within this program, share things that are going on in your life that might be contributing to that. And you can start to form connections as I go through challenges in life, directly or indirectly. It actually impacts where I am on this, you know, continuum. We work to build out STAR exercise rooms in schools. So just like people learn about push-ups and jump rope and sit up for heart health, you can start to learn about breathing, tapping, and havening for mental fitness. We've partnered with the Department of Defense. We've been in collaboration with numerous colleges from USC all the way through Cornell. We have partnered with the NBA. We just announced our partnership with the Golden State Warriors, building a warrior, the Mind, Body, Spirit series, where, you know, we're getting multiple members of these alliances to show the science behind how these challenges actually impact us and share a STAR exercise with the players, with the fans, with the communities. And these aren't one and done events. These are ongoing, year-long, culture-changing, programs. We just partnered with the NFL Players Association. So a lot of awesome things are starting to really go from a movement. And our goal is that one day, as I believe you agree with, mental health will be really looked at the same way we do physical health. You know, when it comes to physical health, you know, there's a gym on every single corner. People work out. We learn about from our dentists and our primary care physicians what happens if we don't brush our teeth. This plaque is going to build up and eventually lead to periodontal disease. And we learn about all these different wellness modalities. We learn about what happens if we eat bad food and what it does for the body. And we don't wait. We don't just learn that there's this thing called periodontal disease. And if you don't have this, you do not need to do anything. Keep living your life fine. But that's the message that we're telling the 4 out of 5 group, the 80% of the population that feels that they're not at the point of disorder. They feel that this is not a topic that applies to them, even though their circuits are being impacted. They might be operating at 70% capacity, but why even settle for that? So our goal is to make it so that one day we're as proactive about our mental fitness the same way we are our physical fitness.
Wonderful. Excellent. 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 I remember years ago running across a TED talk by a psychologist, and the whole idea was emotional hygiene. And he made the very same point you did. I mean, it's an idea whose time has come and hopefully catching on like wildfire. So we've given the website. We've got samehereglobal.org, and people can find out all they need to know about you on that website. I want to thank you so much for this interview. It's one of the easiest I've had to do. You're very well versed in this, and I'm looking forward to getting the Journey's Dream founders connected with the Same Here founder, as we mentioned in a previous talk. Let's make sure we make that happen. Yeah. And I can't thank you enough for the work you do and for taking the time to talk to us here on the On Your Mind podcast. It's delightful. I look forward to following your work and perhaps getting Journey's Dream and Same Here to collaborate in the near future.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Tim. I love the work that you're doing. This is an important part of the mission, bringing awareness to all of this. Would love to collaborate with Journey's Dream. I think to really get this message out there, we have to hold hands with people with like-minded philosophies. Your organization certainly is very much aligned. Would love to see this happen.
Yeah, the idea coming from one of the people who was a seed for the Journey's Dream organization, Dr. Michael Rice, he's been saying for years, we want to get these tools into the minds, hearts, and hands of every human being on the planet. And that's not something one person's going to do.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, that's exactly right. And when we start coming together, when we start working collaboratively, that's when we're going to be able to make this change. And it's so important. I think COVID has brought so much awareness to the, to the fact that we actually are impacted. And it's one of the few times where we all went through a global trauma together, every single person on the planet. And now we have all these splinters from this trauma that's inside of us. It's like, even if it goes away, how do we get these splinters out? And, these are the tools.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to our next connection. Blessings.
Thanks a lot, Timothy. Thanks for having me.
So I'm having trouble with my